Shabbat Shalom. President Rayfeld, Provost Weiss, Dean Hecht, Rabbi Kamras, colleagues on the faculty, rabbinic colleagues, parents, and colleagues. Thank you, Becca, Anna, Matt, Ashley, Remy, Ben, and Eddie, thank you so much. Edie, thank you so much, Mikerev Libi, for inviting me to address you on this milestone occasion. Colleagues, it's certainly not lost on me that a relatively small number of rabbis receive the honor that you are bestowing upon me this morning. And this sacred ceremony will remain forever in your mind's eye, as it will in mine, an assertion to which any ordinee will unquestionably attest. So as the sacred writ puts it, Ach ze yom shekivinuhu. Behold, this is the day that has been long anticipated. Friends, one of our colleagues, a rabbi who was ordained by the Jewish Theological Seminary of America, quite some time ago, recounted a memorable event that occurred just before his ordination was about to begin. He recalled how his mother sidled up to him and whispered the following blessing in his ear. "You know," she said, "it's not too late to go to medical school." Well, thank heavens the rabbi stayed the course, and thank goodness the same can be said of you. North American Jewry must never take the blessings of rabbinic leadership for granted. In 1884, Isaac Mayer Wise addressed HUC's second ordination class from this very pulpit, borrowing a laurel from the book of Exodus. He referred to HUC's 1884 ordinees as Atzilei B'nai Yisrael, Israel's nobility. And these meeds of praise are not hyperbolic. Talented and resolute rabbinical leaders are the sine qua non, an indispensable factor in the upbuilding of an enduring Jewish future. And all diasporic Jewish history validates this assertion. The continuance of our noble Jewish civilization, a heritage whose roots go back 3,500 years, rests on the shoulders of our rabbis, learned teachers, maestros of Jewish spiritual living. Now, colleagues, last Shabbat, we finished reading the book of Leviticus. And as we heard this morning, we began the fourth book of the Torah, Bamidbar, the book of Numbers. And this is a providential coincidence, for it serves as a fitting metaphor for this memorable day in your lives as you progress from your many years of scholarly apprenticeship and you enter the rabbinate, your chosen calling. Now, the book of Numbers has an interesting byname. The ancient sages referred to the book of Numbers as Chumash HaPekudim, the Torah of reckoning. And this moniker comes from the prominent role that as we've heard, accounting plays in the book of Numbers. In the scroll's opening verses, as we've been taught, Moses and Aaron are directed to conduct a census of the Israelites in the wilderness. And this task is expressed with the words, Tifkedu otam, count them. And Jewish commentators always teach us that there's significance in the Torah's chosen word. Therefore, ipso facto, the word tifkedu, pakad, you must count, must surely have a purpose. Now, pakad is a challenging Hebrew word because it evokes so many connotations that it is difficult to pin down its core meaning. But on this Sabbath of ordination, let's at least consider briefly 3 connotations of this Hebrew word pakad in the hope and prayer that we can provide our 7 new colleagues with an exhortation that is both timely and timeless. First, pakad is the basis of a Hebrew word, tafkid, which, as you all know, means task or mission. Today, more than ever before in Jewish history, rabbis are expected to be fully competent in a dizzying array of highly specialized tasks. Many, probably some in this congregation, assume that a rabbi is heaven-born as a modern-day kolbo, a repository of profound wisdom, a talented educator, a caring pastor, a creative programmer, an inspired orator, a skilled musician, a skillful administrator, a technological whiz, a defender of the faith. All rabbis, and particularly neophytes, are understandably overwhelmed by these daunting expectations. And many colleagues struggle to determine which task, which mission, which tafkid should be the rabbi's highest priority. Well, nearly 50 years ago, our unforgettable teacher, Jacob Rader Marcus, responded to this very query when he addressed HUC's 90th ordination class. And he said, every rabbi has 3,000 years of intelligent ancestors. If you do not become increasingly more and more a learned rabbi, you betray the heritage of those who gave you birth. Count that day as lost in which you have not opened a Jewish book. Without learning, there is no Judaism. If you do not learn, you cannot lead. If you do not study, you are only a hireling. You, the members of HUC's 140th ordination class, have been given the essential tools you need to become lifelong learners. And if there is one invaluable lesson that every rabbinical student quickly masters, it is this: there's always more to learn. So as you take your place in the ranks of the American rabbinate, please keep Dr. Marcus's words, "Letotafot bein einecha," as a metaphoric frontlet before your eyes. Every faculty colleague, and this is a rare moment that I can say this, every faculty colleague will agree with what I am about to say. Nurture the life of your mind. Now, the title Rabbi has always elicited the assumption of erudition, but delivering on that assumption is critically important to the American rabbi today. According to a recent Pew study, American Jews are the most highly educated of the world's major religious groups. And this means you'll be facing an intellectually sophisticated and secularly knowledgeable jury. And so you will not be able to entice them or to inspire them or even to persuade them if you allow your current level of knowledge to stultify. So, resolve on this day to ennoble the American rabbinate through your commitment to day-by-day study. This is your foundational tafkid. It is your Reform Jewish birthright. This is what truly counts. Now, the trilateral root pakad resonates with a second meaning. A pakid is a modern Hebrew word for someone who monitors or oversees or attends to an important matter. And each of you has spent considerable amount of time studying the history and the philosophy of Reform Judaism. You have read the historic Pittsburgh Platform of 1885, wherein we find the first formal expression of Reform Judaism's distinctive commitment to repairing the world. Our rabbinic forebears, those who framed that statement, insisted that the modern Jew was literally obligated to address, quote, on the basis of justice and righteousness, the problems presented by the contrasts and the evils of the present organization of society, close quote. Today, one of the greatest evils of the present organization of society is the worrisome rise of bigotry, of intolerance, of racism, and anti-Semitism. And we all may debate the dimensions of the seriousness of this social affliction, but study after study confirms that the upsurge of homegrown anti-Semitism is worry number one for American Jewry. You, colleagues, you must become pikidim, monitors, sentinels, guardians who challenge America to be faithful to the lofty ideals enshrined in our republic's founding documents. To be sure, American Jewry is blessed with several powerful defense organizations, and these vibrant institutions, they deserve our gratitude and they deserve our support. Yet not a one of these Jewish defense organizations has the wherewithal to implant within American Jewry the spiritual sustenance that constitutes the nuclear fuel that electrifies our people with a fierce determination to battle for what Rabbi Joachim Prinz famously called the image, the idea, the aspiration of America itself. Today, as never before in American history, we need Jewish monitors, Pickedim. We need Jewish sentinels who will safeguard the transcendent significance of civilization. And as Reform rabbis, you are the historic inheritors of this critically important role. Learned sociologists tell us that a growing number of American Jews born between 1980 and 2000 prefer not to define themselves as Jews by religion. These non-Jewish Jews are your peers. Yet, another generation is always on the horizon, and the future of Jewish soulfulness, of Judaism's moral consciousness, takes shape every single day, colleagues. Your Reform heritage has commissioned you to advance the civil ideals of justice and righteousness with the spiritual teachings and with Judaism's ethical moorings. Like your Reform rabbinical predecessors, you too are responsible for involving yourselves in the, quote, problems presented by the contrasts and evils of the present organization of society. This effort, too, is what will make your rabbinate count. And finally, the sages of yore taught, Pikdonot harei chazichronot. There are instances wherein the root word pakad resonates with exactly the same meaning as the Hebrew word zachar, which, as all my colleagues know, means to remember. Colleagues, if the time you have spent in the halls of Hebrew Union College in Cincinnati did not successfully inspire you with a desire to revitalize and regenerate Jewish life, it would be difficult to imagine what on earth could. Think of all those who preceded you in this very spot. Think about how whenever you meandered through the second floor of the classroom building, literally 148 years of HUC's faculty and rabbinical alumni were looking at you. These are the faces of your Reform Jewish progenitors. And like you, they studied in this special city. And like you, they were once blessed here in this magnificent house of worship, on this very bima, and in front of this very Aron HaKodesh. And they dreamed, colleagues, the same dreams that you're dreaming. And they spent their lives expending a full reservoir of spiritual commitment to the betterment of Jewish life in this country and around the world. So the remembrance of their lives, of their labors, should evoke a stirring legacy that should inspire all of us to follow in their footsteps. Consider this. In just a few moments, you will be standing on the very spot the very spot where Isaac Mayer Wise ordained the first 4 American-trained rabbis. You will be standing where Kaufman Kohler stood, where Julian Morgenstern stood, where Nelson Glick stood. You will be standing where Judah Magnus, class of 1900, stood, the founding president of Hebrew University. You will be standing on the very spot where Abba Hillel Silver stood, class of 1915, who in October of 1947 appeared before the United Nations to argue for the establishment of the State of Israel. And you will be standing, yes, you will be standing right where Rabbi Sally Priesand stood on her ordination 51 years ago, paving a path for hundreds of women colleagues, including Rabbi Erica Ash, who stood here in 2008 and is now Rabbi Kamras's successor as the president of our conference. Rabbi Joseph Silverman, a member of the class of 1884, spoke these words to the ordination class of 1897. I quote, "In this great work of the rabbinate, you will never lack for examples, for the Jewish pulpit has been filled with those who gained inspiration from the history and the tradition of Israel, and from the best thoughts of modern surroundings. A galaxy of American Israel's great immortal leaders hover around us like a cloud of witnesses whose memory must give you inspiration." The 19th century sage, Rabbi Meir Weiser, perhaps better known to you as the Malbim, insisted that the Bible employed the Hebrew word zachar when it wished to express the concept of remembrance in the usual sense of that word. But it deployed the word pakad when the remembering it was expressing implied an intention to attend to something or to pay special attention to someone or to something in need. And thus we read in Genesis, "V'Adonai pakad et Sarah." The Eternal One didn't just remember Sarah. The Eternal One was remembering the oath that Sarah was promised. And this remembrance enabled Sarah to count, to matter, for she played an indispensable role in the story of the Jewish people. So as loyal ordinees of this historic school, and especially at this transformational moment, always remember it is your sacred duty, lifkod et hamakom hazeh. Remember this school's legacy. Never forget its priceless worth and the imperishable role it has always played in the story of American Judaism. In short, colleagues, remember what the Beach Boys taught us in 1960. Be true to your school. Amitai v'chaverai, this morning's exhortation constitutes Zola's final take-home assignment. The book of Numbers teaches us that three things count. Your decisive mission, your tafkid, is to be a lifelong learner. So go then and make use of your learning and become a spiritual pakid, a monitor who applies Judaism's ethical, moral teachings to the pressing needs of our society in the hope that we can yet preserve the noble ideals of our nation's founders. And finally, tifkedu et Beit HaMidrash Shelachem. Remember always, with unflagging loyalty, this remarkable seminary, this remarkable school, whose roots have been in this city's soil for 150 years. There is strength in Numbers, the book of Numbers, but only when we internalize the charge that is traditionally recited when one sacred chapter ends and another begins. And these words, with which we are all familiar, were actually recited at HUC's earliest ordination ceremonies. And we recite them now again on this day with that same heartfelt sincerity. Chazak, chazak, v'nitchazek. Be strong, hold fast, and let us fortify one another. And above all, may the Atik Yomaya, the Ancient of Days, the great preserver of life, grant you and all those you love much happiness, good health, and blessings galore. V'chein yehi ritzono. May this be the Eternal One's will. Amen.